we're quite obsessed with us in the West.
Yeah.
America,
us right
Western
now,
Europe.
in our village, in our community.
What do we owe the future is a very good question. What do we owe the rest of the world? Because the idea that the environmental problem could be solved by doing less and cutting back, and maybe if we live like we lived in 1985, that could cure things. I don't think it's, the population's out of control. I don't see any volunteers.
Have you heard Peter Singer's thought experiment about the drowning child? This explains the distance thing that you were talking about very nicely.
Yeah.
So you're walking down the street and you see a drowning child in the river that's next to you.
It does sound like a setup for a joke, doesn't it? It sounds like the kind of thing I would go, so, I'm walking down the street, so there's a drowning child, a river. Okay.
That's the start.
Okay.
Peter Singer's a nice, softly spoken Australian man in his late 70s. I don't think that he was meaning it as the setup to a joke, but feel free to take it for tonight.
Okay.
If you were to walk past and not save the child, you would be seen as abhorrent, right? The fucking drowning child, you're the only person that's around here. Why would you not go into the river and go and save this kid? Okay, now...
Some kids are dicks. I mean, let's call it. Let's call it.
The world's better off.
Do I know this kid?
No.
Is it baby Hitler?
No. Why would it be baby Hitler?
I don't know.
Thought experiment. Go to Hitler.
Okay, go on. What's the...
Basically, he continues to use the distance of you. Okay, now the river's 100 yards away. Now it's 300 yards away. Now it's half a mile away. Now it's a mile away. And the point is, at which distance does the drowning child become less important to you? And the argument kind of is that there's no distance. It becomes an arbitrary decision. If you would save the child that was there now, you would save the child that is on the other side of the planet, starving of
it's
whatever.
that you get to that, I think quite quickly to that, what is it, Best Things First? The Bjorn Lomborg book?
Oh,
about like the idea the UN has got 148 things that they want to do. These are our priorities. And you go, well, you don't have any priorities then, because there's a lot of things. Mm-hmm. What are the things that we should do now that make a difference? So the simple stuff like mosquito nets really does makes a huge difference. I mean, we live in an incredibly privileged time, and I'm big on gratitude, of the opposite of kind of bitterness and resentment. That idea of just going, well, what are you grateful about? And it's ever expanding. The idea that if I'd been born in North Korea today, never mind 400 years ago, but today, he's really funny. He's really good at saying, offensive things. I wouldn't have lived to 50.
You made it to 6.5 years old.
Yeah, it's gone. Not
given your penchant for being positive and for gratitude, what do you make of this culture of cynicism that we see on the internet? Fatalism, nihilism, despondency.
I mean, the internet's a problem for me because the anonymity is an issue.
Are you with Jordan Peterson on this?
What on the?
He says that no one's Twitter account that hasn't uploaded a photo of their ID.
I kind of would think that'd be an interesting thing to try. I mean, what's the argument against that? That whistleblowers couldn't operate? Well, I guess whistleblowers existed before Twitter, and they used to have to go to a paper, and the paper would then print the story. That doesn't seem like a terrible system. So we go back to that, and everyone has to upload. And then you go, well, you can still shitpost, you can still do all that stuff. It's just it has to be traceable to you, because we are who we are when nobody's watching. If you want to know who you really are, be on your own. Go somewhere on your own, on holiday or whatever, and that's who you are. If you're driving along and you throw the soda can out of the window of the car, that's who you really are. No one does that with kids in the back. Monster. But if you do that, if that's who you, it's interesting to kind of note that. The difference between character and reputation. You really know who you are. Reputation is what everyone else thinks about you. But you know who you are in yourself. What do we actually want for the world? Because it's not just more money. Because you see what happens when people get more money, there's just more inflation. That tax kicks in. So what do we want? We want better education, better chances for everyone, better opportunities, I guess. It's pretty there's a lot of stuff that everyone kind of agrees on, right?
Why do you think we think about luck incorrectly?
My thing on luck is we're incredibly lucky. There's certain things that we devalue, right? So looks is a really good example. Like if someone's a model and they're gorgeous and they're photographed, lucky. People are kind of a bit dismissive of that. If someone's born really smart, you never go, oh, you're lucky. You're born with an IQ of 162. Bit of luck. No one thinks that. The two great myths in our society are it's hard work and talent, aren't they? And it's always total bullshit. It's always a mix of the two and finding the right medium, the right edge for you, the right thing to be doing. So people think, Bill Gates, he worked so hard. He used to work 18 hours a day, he slept at the office, he worked so hard to build that company. No, he's incredibly bright. He had, it's always talent and the hard work. Michael Jordan, if he hadn't shown up to practice, would be just a guy. And also, if he was living 200 years ago, pre-basketball, I don't know. That skill set is very particular. So what's luck? Be lucky. And just to be here it's beyond, right? I don't know. I like the idea of just going, okay, look, we're very lucky. We've got what we've got. Run with it. And also, you're not going to change it. You might, that thing of like acceptance being kind of that first step in therapy strikes me as really sensible. Just looking at what you've got and go, right, this is it. This is the whole journey. I can work on this. It's like nature, nurture. Obviously, nature has got a bigger effect than nurture. But nurture is the only bit anyone gives a fuck about because it's the only bit you can play with.
Yeah.
Until I can start fiddling with my DNA sensibly, then I'll be nurturing. And nurture, people seem to think nurture stops. People seem to think nurture and environment is the thing for kids and the right school. But really, look at you as a shining example of environment. So you've put yourself in the micro and the macro in a better environment than you were in 5 years ago. You're not surrounded by people on Love Island. You're surrounded by these incredible intellects. And you've taken yourself out of where you grew up and went to university, and you've taken yourself to Austin because there's kind of energy there, and there's other people that are trying to do the same thing as you, and you put yourself in that environment. That strikes me as incredibly kind of powerful. But the idea that, if you're still hanging around with the people you hung around with 25 years ago and they're not adding value, then what are you doing?
The difference between observable and hidden metrics and how they influence our motivation. So a lot of the time, people will trade a hidden metric for an observable metric. A good example of a hidden metric would be something like peace of mind.
Okay.
And something like an observable metric would be money. People will happily trade something which may be more valuable, ultimately, for something which is less valuable, simply because they can measure it more effectively.
Yeah.
Like time's an interesting one because...
It's a John Lennon lyric, isn't it? I give you everything I got for a little peace of mind.
There we go.
It's a very interesting point, because that idea of going, if you can't measure it, we tend to go to what's measured.
Correct.
And so the idea of going but actually what matters is it's emotional.
Yeah. And there's no dashboard. This is why George tries to have a dashboard for all of the things that he does. He's got this end of day assessment type form, custom type form he's made himself that auto-populates to a Google Sheet. And at the end of he was born an incel but managed to ascend out of it. He has got himself to the stage where he's tracking what were the 3 things that I did today, what was my sense of presence, how connected was I, all the way down. And his goal is to track this over time, right? To see what are the correlations between my actions and the way that I felt. So he's trying to make the hidden observable. And the problem that we have is that things that really, really matter to us, connection and peace of mind, and our dopamine and serotonin balance throughout the day, like how content and fulfilled did I feel? All of these things, they're just fucking words. There's this nebulous, ephemeral, wishy-washy, it's trying to hold smoke, right?
Yeah.
To try and work out what this is. But money, my bank account, it's a fucking good game. The number of followers I've got on social media, it's a really fucking good game. So I'll chase down the observable.
Well, it gets back to that story of like, what's the most successful story in human history? Money. Money's the greatest ever told. Because what even is it? Really, when you break it, it's kind of, it's not anything. And everyone believes in it. Everyone believes in that story. And what you're getting to is what's really important in life. And the stuff that maybe you can't measure is kind of what matters, right?
I wonder if there's this hidden observable framework that we've got here. I wonder if there's an equivalent to do with luck. So what you were talking about is that the actual chance of us all being here, which I did for my TEDx talk, I actually looked at this. It's the same likelihood as all 7 million people in Ireland rolling a trillion-sided dice and all of them coming up with the same number. It's astronomical. It's way, 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 way more particles in the observable universe, because your parents had to meet at that particular ovulation cycle with that particular sperm all the way back Forget surviving and all of the rest of it.
To pre-humanity.
Correct. All of the way. The only way that you're here is with the exact, precise combination of each different iteration that goes all the way back. It had to be that sperm, it had to be that egg.
I find that slightly makes my head hurt. You know, that thing of Sam Harris was talking about this recently, the idea that maybe there's no free will. Maybe we have to be having this conversation now because when the Big Bang happened, everything rolled out.
This was
like
ordained.
Of course.